kababayan, kayo po ay nanonood ng kauna-unahan at kaisa-isang locally produced daily show na tungkol at para sa ating mga Pilipino. When we talk about Filipinos, we don't normally talk about domestic violence in public because of, I think, our culture, our religion. But now we're talking about it. This is a serious issue that we have to talk about. The premise is Mel Gibson and the tapes, and still so many things happening in that case, but right now it's quiet. Dr. Jill Murray here is joining us to take on your phone calls because I'm sure a lot of you have questions about this. Armida is our first caller. Hello, Armida. Welcome to Kababayan, LA.
Hi. My question is, how could she be so calm? She led him from one attack, verbal attack, to another, and she was calm through the whole thing. When you're in the middle of domestic violence, you're not calm. You're scared. You know, it feels like she had planned this whole thing and had the tapes ready to go. If she was scared, she could have walked out in time. That's how I feel.
Okay, Armida, did you want to respond to that, Dr. Jill?
Yes, absolutely, because I think that that's a common feeling. And sometimes women in abusive situations do get angry. At least in the beginning, they get angry. But actually, the way Oksana is responding is very typical of how victims of domestic violence would respond. They usually try to be very calm. They usually try to be very logical. They try to be very soft. Because they're trying
to negotiate with a guy who's gone crazy.
That's right, because he's already so angry. You see, the cycle of domestic violence, Janelle, is, and Armida, is that, you know, first there's this honeymoon phase where everything is wonderful. So, you know, when they got together, everything was great and romantic and lovely, and they have this young child and everything's great. And then there's this tension building phase where she knows that he's starting to get ramped up, he's starting to get upset. And so typically, the victim is walking on eggshells, you might say. They're trying to be calm, they're trying to be reasonable, they're trying to be logical with them, they soften their voices, whatever they think will work. Usually, that doesn't work, and then we have the explosive phase, which could be verbal violence, as we saw in these rants, which were just absolute, you know, allegedly, screaming matches. Or they could be physical, or they could be sexual, or emotional abuse. But typically, what we see in these tapes is very, very typical of how a victim of domestic violence responds. And it's not just so easy just to, I mean, we would think she can just hang up.
Right.
Well, no, because
or run away.
That's right. But no, because she's threatened by him. Look at all the things that he's saying to her. It's very, very scary.
And you mentioned that our next caller actually has a question about, we'll have her ask the question. A caller from Palmdale. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, my question is with regards to verbal abuse versus physical abuse. I just wanted to know, is there like a difference in category? Is that there are verbal abusers and there are physical abusers, or is the verbal abuser like the first stage before they get worse and become, you know, physical?
Good question. Yeah.
Excellent question. And honestly, most people don't even think of that. They think of abuse in terms of only physical abuse. So unfortunately, women who aren't being beaten up don't think that they're being abused. So
but can a verbal abuser also be a physical abuser, or can a verbal abuser just be a verbal abuser?
Either way. So there's verbal and emotional abuse. So what we're hearing on these tapes certainly is verbal abuse. There's emotional abuse also, you know, kind of demeaning behaviors and that controlling and checking up and jealousy and intimidation and all those sort of things. And there's sexual abuse, and even in marriage there can be sexual abuse. And there's physical abuse. So sometimes the relationship stays, you know, only verbally and emotionally abusive and doesn't become physical. But it is true that all physically abusive relationships have a history of verbal and emotional abuse. And don't think for a moment, if you're not being physically abused, but you're being demeaned and yelled at and controlled, that you're not being abused, or that you're being a drama queen and it's really all your fault. You're definitely being abused.
Okay, so maybe we should talk about that when we return, you know, how to tell if you're in an abusive relationship and what to do about it and when to leave when it's dangerous for your life. We will talk about that and take more of your phone calls from When we return, you may call anonymously, and when we return, we'll actually take an anonymous caller, so don't go away.